Look, if you're a gamer, you already know how increasingly difficult it's gotten to just enjoy this hobby, this art form, this world that we all love, and that keeps getting harder to love back. Because when it isn't the prices being absolutely ridiculous, it's the microtransactions stuffed into every corner of the game. When it isn't that, it's the bugs at launch. When it isn't that, it's the limited time content that disappears before you even had a chance to experience it. And even when you get past all of that, you still end up dealing with server shutdowns, content being stripped out, and sometimes the game just being yanked out of your account entirely like you never owned it to begin with. And that's exactly what we've been watching happen over and over again with online games. The Crew is probably the most famous example, right? That happened a few years back, and it made people genuinely furious. And since then, it's just kept going. More games as a service, getting their servers killed, getting pulled from digital storefronts, following this same bleak pattern where you pay real money for a product, and then one day, at some point, the developer just arbitrarily decides on you lose access. Just like that, gone. And of course, that lit the fire for a real conversation, a real debate about digital preservation and what consumer rights even mean anymore in the context of gaming. Because, like, why would you pay a lot of money for something you don't actually know is going to be yours? Why would you invest real money into a game that might just stop being accessible one random day because some executive decided the servers cost too much to keep running? This genuinely cannot keep going the way it's going, man. The market had time to fix itself. Developers had decades, literally decades, to stop pulling stunts like this, and they didn't. They just didn't. So now it became a legal thing. Because internationally, we got Stop Killing Games, a real public campaign that brought gamers together from all over the world to push for actual legal protections around digital preservation and consumer rights. The core idea is incredibly simple. If you buy a game, you should have the right to play it forever. Either the developer releases a patch to let you run it offline, or they give your money back. That's it. That's all anyone is asking for. The way things are right now, where you play for some undetermined stretch of time, and then whenever the developer feels like it, they just take the game right out of your hands, that can't continue. It just can't. Stop Killing Games was building real serious momentum. In Europe alone, over 1.1 million people signed to get this debated at the European Commission level and turned into actual law. In the United States, it was getting traction too, turning into proposed California state legislation. Around the world, it kept getting stronger and stronger. The whole premise is that simple, right? Publishers cannot make a game inaccessible after they end support for it. Either they push an update that lets it run offline, or they give you your money back. What's currently happening is not acceptable. They hit 1 million signatures in January, then came all the proper steps. A committee was presented in February. The European Parliament held an actual hearing on the topic in April. A plenary debate happened in May, and everything was going well. Like, it genuinely seemed like this was going to go somewhere real. And then on June 16th, the European Commission rejected the whole proposal. And guys, I gotta be honest, that was a gut punch. That was one of those moments where you just sit there and go, what? What just happened? We were fighting this fight and we were winning it, and now this battle? They took it from us. And the people who did it, the people who derailed everything at the exact moment when more than 1 million European consumers asked for this to become law, their own elected representatives, everywhere in the world, in every single country, politicians always manage to find a way to prove they're completely useless. So what was the European Commission's official response? They said, and I'm just going to read this out so you understand exactly how they worded this. We cannot propose a legal obligation requiring publishers to keep games playable after the end of commercialization, as this would raise concerns about intellectual property rights, confidential commercial information, costs to publishers, and potential cybersecurity risks in titles that no longer receive security updates and patches. And according to the Commission, a requirement like that wouldn't be, quote, proportionate. Proportionate. That's the word they chose, proportionate. It's really something, right? It's really something to see that they're not even remotely worried about consumer rights. Not worried at all about the rights of people who go out there and pay real money for a product and then lose access to it some random day because a developer decided to flip a switch. That's fine, apparently. But intellectual property rights? Now that we have to protect. Like, nobody is out here saying that if I buy The Crew 2, I now own the Crew franchise and I can go make my own game and sell it. That's not even close to what anyone is asking for. I own a copy of the game. My right is to play it. That's it. It makes literally no sense for a company to just take that down and leave me with nothing. Confidential commercial information? Come on. I downloaded the game. What state secrets are hiding in there exactly? Cost to publishers? The game is already made, dude. All anyone is asking is that if you're going to kill the servers, you build a way for people to play offline. That's genuinely all. Or give me my money back. Your choice. Cybersecurity risks. The server that the company could make available after shutdown can be run by the players themselves at their own discretion. Like, notice something here? Every single argument the commission used is a concern for the companies. Every single one. The consumer can go to hell. What kind of European Commission is this that isn't out here defending the rights of the European people? Everything they said relates to the interests of massive companies, massive studios. What about the consumer, the citizen, the actual person who paid? Absolutely nothing, not a word. And apparently it's disproportionate to make a law protecting the consumer, but it's not disproportionate to have a commission whose ruling goes entirely against the only side that actually put down real money. Like, what's more disproportionate than that? You pay for a product, you invest your time, you invest your money, and then after some random stretch of time, it just stops being playable and you have no recourse whatsoever. That's the thing they're protecting. That's what they're calling proportionate. And I want to talk about what truly disproportionate actually means, right? Because I think some of these people have lost a plot. Disproportionate would be me buying a car, hitting a speed bump, getting a flat tire, and then trying to sue the manufacturer for a brand new car. That would be disproportionate. Disproportionate would be me going to a restaurant, paying for a meal, having my steak come out slightly overcooked, and demanding they give me an entirely new one for free. That's disproportionate. But me paying for a game and then after some arbitrary moment in time, the game stops being playable and I want my rights as a consumer respected and I want access to the content I actually paid for, that's what you want to call disproportionate? For the love of God. You know what's actually disproportionate? $1 billion company sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars that can't push out a simple update for a digital product. And let's be really clear about something here, because I think this point keeps getting glossed over. We are not talking about a car. A car is a physical object. It breaks down, it deteriorates, it has physical limitations. We're not talking about a CD or a TV. We are talking about software. Software that can be copied infinitely. It's zeros and ones. It's data. It can be distributed forever at essentially zero ongoing cost. There is no continuing cost tied to a video game once it's already been made and released. So these people are going to sit there and tell me it's disproportionate to protect the consumer on this? What's disproportionate is what's happening to us right now. And the narrative building around all of this keeps pointing to Ubisoft and Video Games Europe as the main parties responsible for sinking this whole movement. And I mean, that's not even surprising at this point, right? Ubisoft was ground zero for Stop Killing Games from the very start. It was the crew shutdown that kicked all of this off. And like, without formal proof, without making accusations that aren't grounded in something real, there were rumors for a while that people from Ubisoft and other companies in this sector had been making contact with European lawmakers specifically to talk about Stop Killing Games. And now we're seeing the result of that. But honestly, I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to be careful about this one. I am absolutely certain that companies like Ubisoft and other European studios were actively lobbying to kill Stop Killing Games. That is a fact, not a maybe. When it comes to politics, it's all about who has the most leverage. And when something is going to impact an industry as massive as video games, you better believe these companies are not sitting on their hands doing nothing. And it's not even a secret at this point because you can look this up. In the weeks leading up to this decision, multiple reports surfaced about major executives, including Yves Guillemot himself, the actual head of Ubisoft, attending private meetings with representatives of the European Commission. Like, why is Yves Guillemot sitting down for a chat with a bunch of European Commission reps? Not for tea, man. Not for the biscuits. To lobby. And TechSpot confirmed it. Ubisoft and Video Games Europe met with the Commission behind closed doors 2 weeks before this decision came down. 2 weeks before, rejecting a proposal that over 1 million people signed. The Commission was in a closed room with the exact people who had the most to lose if that proposal passed. If that isn't rigged, I genuinely don't know what is anymore. The entire process was theater. The meetings that Stop Killing Games had in the European Parliament were, in practice, just for show, because without any of us knowing, the outcome had already been decided. They already knew they were never going to listen. They already knew they were never going to give us what we were asking for. which honestly just confirms this whole thing was fixed from the jump. The fact that over 1 million people signed, the fact that actual consumer advocacy groups got involved, the fact that none of it mattered, that says everything, guys. These people never wanted us to have these protections, and that's obvious now, and it kind of feels like they resent the fact that we even tried. And the commission also had the audacity to use arguments in bad faith, trying to undermine the movement by claiming that Stop Killing Games was demanding things it never actually demanded. None of it was good faith. The most these people were willing to do was slap a little warning label on game pages and digital storefronts saying whether a game requires internet to function. Wow, thank you so much. The game cover is going to say, this game is online and we can shut it down whenever we want. That's genuinely what it amounts to. So yeah, you can take that voluntary code of conduct and you know what you can do with it, because it's not worth anything. It's an insult. You've got to be kidding us with that. And Ubisoft is probably celebrating right now, thinking they won this battle. But here's the thing, and anyone who's been following this company knows this. It's a very strange and very contradictory moment for them to be taking this stance, because they have the Black Flag remake coming and they genuinely need that game to sell. Taking this whole buying isn't owning position while simultaneously trying to sell a product to a consumer base that clearly cares deeply about ownership, that is going to put Ubisoft in a very complicated spot, man. Will people boycott Black Flag on principle? Will this decision affect sales? Either way, it's a dark move. And it's an especially dark move from a company that is currently in the red that would essentially be bankrupt right now if Tencent hadn't injected money to keep it afloat, because their own leadership completely destroyed the company's legacy and its public image. And there's no denying that. That's just what happened. And remember Philippe Tremblay, Ubisoft's director of subscriptions? He became pretty notorious in 2024 for saying that we all just need to get comfortable with not owning our games if we want subscription services to grow healthily. Like, as if we needed to give up ownership so that Ubisoft of all companies could make more money. Ubisoft, the company that would be bankrupt without Tencent, that's who's telling us to get comfortable with not owning things. And it just tells you a lot about where Yves Guillemot's head is at and where the company's board is at. They want your purchase to be a license. They want you to be a tenant forever, because the industry loves tenants. Tenants pay indefinitely. Owners don't. Owners just own the thing and that's it. And they don't want that. They want you on Game Pass, on PlayStation Plus, never actually owning anything, never actually having a copy that's yours, so they can shut it down whenever it stops making enough money, whenever they decide it isn't worth the server costs anymore. And look at what happened with Warzone skins. People lost everything they paid for because the company just didn't want to bother porting things over. That's insane. They sell you microtransactions, they shut it down, and then tough luck to everyone who already paid real money. That's the future they want for all of us. And what I genuinely can't wrap my head around is why companies can't just make offline support a requirement before a game even launches. We've always had offline games, then this trend of everything being always online just crept in and now it's everywhere. But what's actually stopping anyone from building an offline mode alongside that? Any company could do this. And like, how much did it actually cost Ubisoft to build that offline patch for the crew once the pressure got intense enough? Probably not that much. The game is already made. You adapt some code, you're done. You pull a small team off another project for a while, sure, there's some investment, but couldn't the revenue the game already generated cover that? And think about what that does for the company's image too. The reason people don't like Ubisoft isn't mysterious. It's moves like this. A company that actually values its customers, that wants to operate with a strong reputation over the long term, builds the offline mode. It doesn't just flip the switch and walk away. And maybe the most frustrating part of all of this, and there are a lot of frustrating parts, is that the Stop Killing Games team was genuinely trying to save the industry from itself. Because for years, publishers have been loudly talking about player trust, about engagement, about retention, about how loyalty matters to them. But the second that consumers ask for the most basic, most obvious consumer protection imaginable, suddenly we're the irrational ones. Suddenly we don't understand how complicated all of this is. No, man. We understand perfectly. That's exactly why this movement took off the way it did, because we've been watching for the better part of a decade as corporations slowly eroded ownership while presenting it as some kind of progress for us. And it's not. It never was. Every time a company takes a game offline, every time a title disappears forever, every time access is revoked without warning, we're being reminded that we don't truly own what we paid for. And you know what that does over time? It destroys trust. Not just in that publisher, in the entire industry. And that matters. That really matters. Because the next time a publisher asks for $70, $90, $100 for a premium edition of some game, people are going to pause. They're going to ask, why should I buy this if you're going to take my access away later? If I don't own what I buy, why should I give you any money at all? That is a legitimate question. And it's one these companies clearly don't want you asking, because what they want is for games to be seen as services instead of products. If they manage to pull that off, consumer rights get significantly weaker as a result. That's the goal here. And what they either don't understand, or maybe they do understand and just don't care, is that they're accelerating a trust crisis that is already actively happening. Look around, man. People aren't buying day one releases the way they used to. AAA budgets keep spiraling out of control. Trust across huge portions of this industry is at historic lows right now. And what's the industry's response to all of that? Make everything worse for everyone. That's it. That's the move. Ubisoft probably thinks they won this, but all they really did was light a fire that's going to leave people even more furious at them than they already were. They've just become the symbol of everything that is wrong with gaming right now. Not because they're the only ones at fault, they're not, but because they said out loud what the rest of the industry was already doing quietly. And I want to be clear about something here. I don't blame Ubisoft's developers. Nobody in the art department, nobody working on the gameplay, nobody actually making the games is responsible for what the people above them are deciding. The problem is the structure. The problem is the man who somehow still runs this company, who wants always online requirements and more control because he genuinely believes that the less ownership we have, the more leverage he and his board have over us. And he's not entirely wrong about that, which is exactly why this fight matters. This decision is a win for the publishers in this round. I have to admit that. And the reason it matters so much isn't just about this moment right now. It's that every year that passes without meaningful regulation is another year the industry can keep building games around disposable infrastructure. And every year, nothing changes, makes preservation harder, makes ownership weaker, and trains consumers a little longer to just accept less for more. That is the slow burn consequence of a ruling like this one. But the war isn't over. The Stop Killing Games team made that clear. They are now pushing to get Stop Killing Games principles incorporated into the Digital Fairness Act, a legislative proposal currently being drafted and set to be presented before the end of 2026 inches the European Union. It's going to address various manipulative commercial practices in the digital marketplace, dark patterns, addictive design, deceptive marketing, and the push is now to get video game related consumer protections included in that same act. There's a real chance it actually gets incorporated there. And beyond that, as the Stop Killing Games team themselves said, McGrath and Verkunen just made over 1 million people angry, and more are coming. The power now is in public pressure and accountability. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. You can't close this back up. People are increasingly aware of what's happening and change is coming one way or another. If it doesn't start in Europe, it'll start in the United States. If not in the United States, somewhere else. But the way things are right now is not okay. Nobody can just keep tolerating being ripped off, paying real money for a game only to have it shut down, having content stripped away, having access revoked like we never paid for anything in the first place. Change has to happen. And when it does finally happen for real, it will be the most welcome thing this industry has seen in a long time. And I really do think it's going to happen because times are changing. Guys, look at what we've already managed to push into public consciousness with this movement alone. That doesn't just disappear. That kind of momentum doesn't just vanish because one commission made a bad call. If anything, decisions like this one tend to make these movements angrier, more organized, and more determined. And that's honestly kind of the best outcome in a weird way, because now the lines are really clear. We know who's on our side and we know exactly who isn't. And when the Digital Fairness Act comes around, we're going to be ready. Subscribe if you want to keep up with how this all unfolds, because I will absolutely keep covering it. Thanks for watching. Let's keep up the good fight, everybody. See you next time.